when Donald Trump announced he was a candidate for president back in 2015, he said the system is rigged, and he spent the past decade proving it. For example, the judge in the Georgia Rico trial, where Trump, along with 18 co-defendants, was charged with attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in the state, that judge on Wednesday tossed the remainder of the case out. The New York Times reporting this now marks the third set of criminal indictments against Donald Trump that have been tossed out after Donald won in November of last year. The other two were special counsel Jack Smith's indictment in Florida for the mishandling of classified documents where they had him dead to rights, and the indictment in Washington, D.C. for January 6, where he also had him dead to rights. The Supreme Court immunity ruling would have had no bearing on either one of those. Trump first succeeded in getting the prosecutor down in Georgia, Fani Willis, thrown off the Rico case, and he was hoping to get the trial transferred out of Fulton County. The state Supreme Court in Georgia said, okay, after Fani Willis had an improper relationship with one of the lead prosecutors. It was garbage. Well, no district attorney would take the case, so it fell into the hands of Georgia's top prosecutor, Peter Skandalakis. And he decided on Wednesday to drop the entire case in its entirety. In a memo to the judge, Skandalakis wrote, given the complexity of the legal issues at hand, ranging from constitutional questions and the supremacy clause to immunity, jurisdiction, venue, speedy trial concerns, and access to federal records, and even assuming each of these issues were resolved in the state's favor, bringing this case before a jury in 2029, 2030, or even 2031 would be nothing short of a remarkable feat, unquote. Yeah, why do big things like protect our Constitution? Skandalakis went on to say the people of Georgia should not be expected to pay for a trial that will drag on for several more years, and they should not expect to be protected from somebody like Donald Trump stealing their vote. I'll have more on this later on in the program. That trial was not a complete failure. You had Kenneth Chesebro, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, all pleading guilty. These were the lawyers who dreamed up the false elector scheme. John Eastman was going to go to trial. I don't think it's going to happen now, but he got disbarred. Rudy Giuliani got disbarred. A lot of people got punished for this. I don't know about Kenneth Chesebro. I think he may. I know Jenna Ellis got disciplined. I think she was temporarily disbarred. I'll have to check. And Kenneth Chesebro, I don't know if he can still practice law. Bloomberg reporting that Donald Trump's peace envoy, real estate lawyer Steve Witkoff, consulted with Yuri Ushakov, Putin's top foreign policy advisor, on how to sell this 28-point peace plan to Donald Trump. This is a peace plan outlined this week where Ukraine is asked to surrender not just land currently occupied by Russia, but land that Russia still wants. The plan started in Washington and then was worked on with Russia, leaving Ukraine completely out of it. I have a feeling what's going to happen is Zelensky's going to keep saying yes, come to Washington, D.C., pretend to be grateful to Donald Trump, and he'll let it drag out, knowing that this peace plan will end up the same way the peace plan between Israel and Hamas ended up, in the dustbin of history. The mother of White House press spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt's 11-year-old nephew, now in ICE custody. Bruno Caroline Ferreira came to America from Brazil as a child. She received protection under Barack Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival program. She was a dreamer. After living in this country for 26 years, however, she is now being held in a Louisiana ICE facility, unable to see her 11-year-old son. That would be Caroline Leavitt, White House press spokeswoman. That would be her nephew. Leavitt's brother had a son with this woman. They never married. The mother reportedly has no criminal record. She had a green card interview scheduled for the spring of 2026, was arrested in Revere, Massachusetts. They didn't have a warrant, and she was on her way to pick her son up from school. She got shipped 1,500 miles away. Caroline Leavitt refused to comment. Now, this is just purely conjecture. People are saying, why isn't Caroline Leavitt trying to help the mother of her nephew? This is just what I suspect. I think she wanted the mother deported. That's just what I believe. I have no evidence to back that up, but I know how family custody battles are, especially with the mother of a nephew who's not married to your brother. It would be very convenient to make the mother go away. I don't think Caroline Leavitt is upset about her nephew's mother sitting in an ICE detention facility about to be deported. I have no proof other than a gut feeling. I think she asked for this. Well, things are never as bad or as good as they seem. But they do look really bad now for Republicans who are paying a price for their unquestionable devotion to Donald Trump. This is the mop-up. We often forget that Trump overperformed in 2024 because he had to. Otherwise, he was going to prison. The Supreme Court's immunity ruling wasn't enough to keep Trump from a lifetime of litigation, one civil lawsuit after another, criminal indictments and convictions. He remains a convicted felon. Yes, 3 criminal trials got dissolved after he won the presidency in November of last year, but he's still a convicted felon. He lost the Manhattan criminal trial. That Manhattan criminal trial last year, where he was found guilty, just a taste of what was to come should he have lost last year's election. He did win, and I think those indictments and the trials might have helped him a little politically. Now, in his fevered mind right now, Trump must win the midterms or his presidency and his life is over. Doesn't matter if that's true. Doesn't matter that the Rico trial down in Georgia just got thrown out. He knows who he's up against. People are coming for him. A lot of lawyers, a lot of politicians are coming for him. And history is not on his side. He took office the first time with a trifecta. He had control of both the House and the Senate and the White House. But after the 2018 midterms, he lost the House after Democrats flipped. How many seats do you think Democrats flipped in 2018? 41 House seats went from red to blue in the 2018 midterms. Nancy Pelosi became Speaker. 2 impeachments followed, along with endless investigations that destroyed Trump's chances of getting reelected. And we all know how Trump responded to that defeat. So the 2026 midterms will be fought first in the courts to make sure Republican gerrymandering sticks and Democratic redistricting, Democratic gerrymandering, is overturned. Then it will be fought at the ballot box on Election Day. But if history is any guide, Democrats are probably, if it were held today, the Democrats would win back the House. Trump, after the election, will claim voter fraud, challenge the legitimacy of the newly redrawn blue congressional districts, and the fight will return to the courts, and they will return to the streets. Trump is not shy when it comes to animating his violent extremist base who can't wait to start throwing punches, and worse. When it comes to Trump, violence is always just below the surface. If you're a judge, a prosecutor, a jury, or a Republican who challenges Trump, or a Democrat, it's a given that death threats, swatting, and doxing are in your future. Trump has never once disavowed this behavior from his supporters. He never asked them to stop. He encourages it. Like on January 6th, by the time he told the insurrectionists, "I love you, now go home," the situation was coming under control, but no thanks to him. When asked about the violence, the threats of violence, Trump always says, "I don't know anything about it." Then adding, "But from what you're telling me, it sounds like my supporters are very upset." Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up to Trump this month, primarily over the Epstein files, and then she had a spring for more private security. The new temporary funding bill includes more than $200 million just to beef up security for members of Congress for fiscal year 2026. It's going to cost an additional $200 million this year to protect members of Congress because of Trump. So, as I said, things are never as bad and never as good as they appear. But Marjorie Taylor Greene's departure, the strong arming of her behind the scenes, the threats, that's creating fissures inside the Republican Party, especially in the House of Representatives, which Trump is desperately trying to hold on to. That's why they're doing all this redistricting. It isn't about the Senate, it's about the House of Representatives. Punchbowl reporting that Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation, effective in January of next year, is just the tip of the iceberg. Several Republican lawmakers are so disgusted by Trump's manhandling of the party, they're now threatening to quit before their term is over. Nebraska House Republican Don Bacon is a former general in the Air Force who says he and his wife had to sleep with loaded guns beside them when he disobeyed Trump by voting against Jim Jordan for Speaker 2 years ago. He's had enough and announced he will not seek re-election. So his district in Nebraska is a blue dot. That's what it's called. It's Nebraska near Omaha. Harris and Biden won that district, and the electoral vote that comes with it, because Nebraska is not winner take all. His district is that blue dot, but he's a Republican, and because he says he's not running for re-election, that district is very much in play because he's not coming back. That district no longer has the power of incumbency for Republicans. Another reason Bacon is leaving is because he's not part of the pro-Putin wing of the Republican Party. Bacon said he was so disgusted by Trump's proposed peace plan for Ukraine, he called it the Witkoff Ukrainian Surrender Plan. So disgusted, said Bacon, that he seriously considered quitting Congress. He thought earlier in the week, I'm just going to quit in January before my term expires. So what does this mean? Well, remember, in order to pass that temporary spending bill to reopen the government, Mike Johnson could only afford to lose 2 votes. There's going to be a special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene. But if Punchbowl is correct, and we're starting to look at mass defections from the House, Republicans leaving the House before the midterms, before their terms are over, that means a couple of things. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries could become Speaker before the midterms, before January 3rd, 2027, when the new Congress is sworn in. And it might not be the worst gambit for Donald Trump. Give Democrats the House for 7 or 8 months so Republicans have something to run against in November, because it's not looking good for Republicans. It's just not. Consumer sentiment is now at an all-time low. Inflation going up, unemployment going up. The stock market is about to implode. Everyone knows the AI bubble is about to burst. They just can't agree on when it's going to burst. Of the S&P 500, only about 8 stocks are doing well. The rest are in the doldrums. This is an economy built on sand. The other problem for Mike Johnson is every Republican who heads for the exit before the midterms or announces their retirement for after the midterms, that means one more reliably red congressional district is now flippable. Incumbents tend to win, but after they retire, name recognition for that district disappears. The power of incumbency evaporates, and it becomes harder for that district, especially if it's purple or on the fence. It's going to be harder for that district to stay red, especially if there's a mini blue wave, which most people think is about to happen. And remember, Johnson only had 2 Republicans to spare on the spending bill. All it took was 2 Republicans to say no. Trump is never going to prison over the Epstein files. He's never going to resign because of the Epstein files. He's already insisting the chain of custody of the Epstein files has been contaminated by the Biden administration, by Merrick Garland, that they slipped stuff into the Epstein files to embarrass Trump. Of course, they never bothered to release the Epstein files to embarrass Trump, so why would they have slipped things into it? What the Epstein revelations have done is weaken Trump politically. Nancy Mace, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, signed onto that discharge petition to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files, and they refused to remove their signatures even after they were pressured by Trump and the White House. It was a full court press. Lauren Boebert of Colorado was brought into the White House Situation Room. I triple-checked this. I couldn't believe that they actually dragged Lauren Boebert into the White House Situation Room. That is where Trump meets with his generals to launch illegal airstrikes. It's where they launched their airstrikes on Iran. It's the most top secret space in the White House, and it's intimidating. Biden used the Situation Room to convince Mike Johnson to support funding for Ukraine. That's the proper use of the Situation Room, because it's humbling for a member of Congress to enter the inner sanctum of our military. But Trump used the Situation Room, the room where Osama bin Laden was essentially killed. You're looking at a picture of them raiding the compound in Abbottabad. He used that Situation Room not for national security. He used the Situation Room to convince Lauren Boebert to take her name off the discharge petition calling for a vote on the Epstein files. Attorney General, it gets even worse, and I've triple-checked this. Attorney General Pam Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and FBI Director Kash Patel were all reportedly in the White House Situation Room cajoling Boebert, trying to impress upon her the importance of not releasing the Epstein files. Inside the Situation Room, she was told what? That this is a matter of utmost national security? Didn't work. She stood firm. She didn't believe them. Neither did Nancy Mace or Marjorie Taylor Greene. 3 Republicans, they along with Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie, who co-sponsored the petition, were the only 4 Republicans who signed it. They didn't cave. It was Trump who caved. All it took was 4 Republicans to defy Trump, and he folded, told everyone to vote for the release of the Epstein files. It passed 427-1 in the House. Clay Higgins, the lunatic from Louisiana, voted no. And then it passed in the Senate unanimously. Trump signed it. Despite using all the majesty of the Oval Office to intimidate, coerce, he used the Situation Room. He was forced to leave. Well, he often loses whenever he's in the Situation Room. Iran, Gaza, the Houthis, a lot of military strikes that he lost. He's lost. Iran still will not allow in UN inspectors. Hamas is in control of the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, and the Houthi rebels are still firing missiles into Israel and hitting ships in the Red Sea. So these are the actions of a desperate man who will stop at nothing. Never forget, last year Trump knew either I get elected or I go to prison. And now, despite the good news from Georgia, he knows it's win the midterms or else. Or else. In Trump's mind, as fevered as it is, he knows, and he's right, if I let my guard down, I'm in a lot of trouble. He cannot let his guard down, but he's getting tired. He's going to be 80. He's getting tired. So I don't think he's going to go to prison. I don't, especially not over the Epstein files. But contained within those Epstein files are very revealing emails. Now, we haven't seen them. What we did see was a document dump that came from the Epstein estate. That's what we've been saying in the past month. The Epstein estate turned over some documents to the House Oversight Committee, and then it got released publicly. We haven't seen the Epstein files. But from the Epstein estate, we've seen emails where Jeffrey Epstein writes, quote, "I know how dirty Donald is," unquote. Well, we all know. Trump just asked the Supreme Court to overturn the civil judgment where he was ordered to pay E. Jean Carroll $5 million for sexually assaulting and then defaming her. There's also the $83 million judgment for defaming her again. And interest is collecting on these judgments. So the longer he waits to pay E. Jean Carroll, the more likely it is he could be looking at a $100 million payout. So why is he prolonging this? Why is he bringing this to the Supreme Court? I think he believes it helps him politically. I think a lot of Republican women last year thought Trump had been railroaded in the E. Jean Carroll trial. But he's not running for re-election quite yet. Why keep the E. Jean Carroll story alive, especially when you're trying to kill the Epstein files? So this is a headline from the Washington Post, July 19th, 2023. Headline from the Washington Post. Judge clarifies, yes, Trump was found to have raped E. Jean Carroll. Let me repeat. Washington Post, July 19th, 2023. Judge clarifies, yes, Trump was found to have raped E. Jean Carroll. And that is all ABC News ever had to present to the judge in the defamation lawsuit Trump filed against George Stephanopoulos. That's all they had to present. Instead, ABC decided to hand Trump, $18 million? Now, the judge said this twice. The judge in the case put into writing twice that Trump was found civilly liable for rape in common law parlance. The judge said, had this been another state, it would have been rape instead of sexual assault. But he said New York differentiates between the two, which is why on Thanksgiving, your uncle said it wasn't rape. It was sexual assault, unquote. And if you dare to ask your uncle, what's the difference between rape and sexual assault? Why is sexual assault, I shouldn't be laughing. I'm laughing at the stupidity. Why is sexual assault more exculpatory than rape? When you ask him that question, he turns violent. He turns violent because he wanted to turn violent. That's what this is all about, finding an excuse to either turn violent or scream at the top of